Hello everyone. I, Dr. Rubal Barar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Cultural Studies and Foreign Languages at GSS DGS Khalsa College Patiala, Punjab, India, will be today introducing you to the great classic of Victorian nonsense literature, Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There is a Victorian children literature book written by Lewis Carroll, published in December 1871. Written as a sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass narrates Alice's puzzling adventures as she moves through a mirror into the other side of the looking glass. She enters the looking glass world, which is another unreal world filled with illogical and unexplainable behavior. This world is dominated by the chessboards and the chess pieces. Let's take up the summary. The novel begins with Alice sitting in her great armchair at home, drowsily watching her pet kittens. Kitty, the black kitten, had unravelled a ball of string. She snatches Kitty up and begins telling her about the looking glass house. It is an imaginary world on the other side of the mirror, where everything is backward. She wishes to pretend to enter this strange world, and Alice suddenly finds herself on the mantelpiece, and she is able to step through the mirror into the looking glass house. On the other side of the mirror, Alice discovers a room similar to her own. The part of the room that could be seen from Alice's old room had nothing interesting, but the part that was not visible was extraordinary. The chessmen stand in the fireplace in pairs, oblivious to Alice's presence. She comes to the aid of the White Queen's daughter, Lily, but realizes that the chess pieces cannot see her. Alice becomes distracted by a book lying on the shelf, in which she reads a nonsensical poem entitled Jabberwocky. Frustrated by the strange poem, she sets off to explore the rest of the house. Alice leaves the house and spots a beautiful garden in the distance. But every time she tries to follow the path to the garden, she finds herself back at the door to the house. Confused, she wonders aloud how to get to the garden, and to her surprise, a tiger lily responds. Other flowers join in the conversation, and several of them begin to insult Alice. Alice learns from the flowers that the Red Queen is nearby, and Alice sets off to meet her. Alice meets the Red Queen, and the two engage in conversation. But the Red Queen constantly corrects Alice's etiquettes. Alice looks out over a field, sees a great game of chess in progress, and tells the Red Queen that she would like to join. The Red Queen tells Alice she can stand in as a white pawn and marks a course for Alice, explaining that when she reaches the end of the game, Alice will become a queen. Alice inexplicably finds herself on a train with a goat, a beetle, and a gentleman dressed in white paper. They each nag Alice until the train eventually lurches to a halt. Alice finds herself in a forest, conversing with a chicken-sized gnat, who tells her about the different insects of Looking Glass world. After listening to the names of the insects, Alice sets off again and discovers that she has forgotten the names of things and even her own name. Then she comes across a fawn who has also forgotten the names of things, and the two press on through the forest. When Alice and the fawn emerge from the forest, their memories of names begin to come back, and the fawn runs away in fear of Alice. Then Alice moves on alone until she meets Tweedledum and Tweedledee, an identical pair of heavy-set men. The twins ignore Alice's repeated requests for directions and recite a poem instead. Tweedledum and Tweedledee notice that the Red King is sleeping nearby, and they explain to Alice that she exists only as a part of the Red King's dream. Alice is upset by this information, and she decides to acknowledge that the two of them only speak nonsense. A fight spontaneously erupts between Tweedledum and Tweedledee over a broken rattle. A giant crow swoops down and interrupts the fight, sending Tweedledum and Tweedledee running. Alice slips away and encounters the White Queen, who explains that time moves backward in Looking Glass world. As they speak, the White Queen plasters her finger, then screams in pain, and finally pricks her finger on a brooch. After explaining to Alice that she used to practice the impossible daily, she transforms into a sheep in a shop. The sheep asks a disoriented Alice what she would like to buy. Though the shop is full of curious things, Alice finds that she cannot fix her eye on any one thing. The sheep asks Alice if she knows how to row. Before she knows it, Alice finds herself in a boat with the sheep, rowing down a stream. The boat crashes into something and sends Alice tumbling to the ground. When she stuns, she finds herself back in the shop. She purchases an egg from the sheep, who places the egg on a shelf. Alice reaches for the egg and finds herself back in the forest, where the egg has transformed into Humpty Dumpty. Humpty Dumpty sits on a wall and criticizes Alice for having a name that doesn't mean anything, explaining that all names should mean something, as his name meant, to quote, "the shape I am," unquote. Humpty Dumpty treats Alice rudely, boasting that he can change the meanings of words at his own will. When Alice learns this, she asks Humpty Dumpty to explain the words of the nonsensical poem Jabberwocky. He defines the words of the first stanza and then recites a portion of his own poem. He abruptly bids her goodbye, and Alice storms off, annoyed. All of a sudden, a loud crash shakes the forest, and she watches soldiers and horsemen run by. Alice comes across the White King, who explains to her that he has sent all of his horses and men, presumably to put the shattered Humpty Dumpty back together again. Alice comes across the White King, who explains to her that he has sent all of his horses and men, presumably to put shattered Humpty Dumpty back together again. The king's messenger, Haiga, approaches and informs them that the lion and the unicorn are, to quote, at it again, unquote. That is, they are once again fighting in the town. Alice sets off with her new companions toward the town to watch the battle. They catch up with another of the king's messengers, Hatta, who explains the events of the fight that have happened so far. The lion and unicorn stop battling, and the White King calls for refreshments to be served. The White King tells Alice to cut the cake, but she finds that every time she slices the cake, the pieces fuse back together. The unicorn then instructs Alice that looking glass cakes must be passed around first before they are sliced. Alice distributes the cake, but before they begin eating, a great noise interrupts, and when Alice looks up, she finds herself all alone once again. The Red Knight gallops up to Alice and takes her as a prisoner. The White Knight arrives at Alice's side and vanquishes the Red Knight. Alice and the White Knight walk and talk together, and Alice finally finds a friend in the eccentric chessman. He promises to bring her safely to the last square, where she will become a queen. As they walk, he tells her about all of his inventions before sending her off with a song. She crosses the final brook and finds herself sitting on the bank with a crown on her head. Alice finds herself in the company of the Red Queen and the White Queen, who question her relentlessly before falling asleep in her lap. The sound of their snoring resembles music. The sound is so distracting that Alice doesn't notice when the two queens disappear. Alice discovers a castle with a huge door marked, to quote, Queen Alice, unquote. Alice goes through the door and finds a huge banquet in her honor. She sits and begins eating, but the party quickly deteriorates into total chaos. Overwhelmed, Alice pulls away the tablecloth and grabs the Red Queen. Alice keeps on shaking the Red Queen, and it keeps on getting smaller. Suddenly, Alice wakes up from her dream to find herself holding Kitty in her old room. She wonders aloud whether or not her adventures were her own dream or the dream of the Red King. These are the references of this presentation. I hope this presentation will be helpful to you. Thank you.